funny thing about timing, isn't it? You stumble across something, and it feels like an accident. Like you were just scrolling, wandering, wasting minutes you'll never get back, and suddenly, this. Right here. Right now. Almost like the universe has a sick sense of humor. Dropping the right words in front of you, at the exact moment you can't ignore them. Maybe you call it coincidence. Maybe you call it chance. But deep down you know better. This isn't random. This was set up, placed here, arranged in a way that makes you stop, blink, and feel like someone's been watching you closer than you'd like to admit. Nothing you've faced was random, though you've probably spent half your life believing it was. You sit there thinking, why me? Why now? Why this? As if the world just tosses dice and lets them roll however they please. But no, look closer. Every cut, every scar, every betrayal, every moment you thought was a mistake. It wasn't chaos. It was choreography. A twisted little dance meant to push you, shape you, break you in just the right places so you'd be standing exactly here, exactly now. The pain wasn't an accident, it was a scalpel. And the hands that held it knew exactly where to cut. Think back to the nights that almost destroyed you. The nights you begged for relief, for answers, for an escape that never came. You thought you were abandoned, left to drown in the storm. But every unanswered prayer was an answer in disguise. Because if you had gotten what you wanted back then, if life had given in to your cries, you wouldn't have made it here. You'd be stuck in the shallow comforts you thought would save you, instead of carrying the strength that suffering carved into your bones. You wanted relief. But what you got was resilience. And resilience doesn't come from luck. It comes from being thrown into fires that feel like hell, but somehow leave you standing. You see, the randomness you thought ruled your life was never random at all. It was precision, so sharp it looked like chaos. Like shattered glass, scattered everywhere, jagged, messy, dangerous. But step back far enough, and you see the pieces form a pattern. A design you were too close to notice. The heartbreak that split you, the betrayal that hardened you, the failure that humiliated you, they were all puzzle pieces. Ugly up close, but essential to the picture you're only starting to recognize. And here's the thing, if life had been smooth, if it had handed you comfort without struggle, you'd be weak right now. Too weak to carry the kind of weight your destiny demands. Smooth seas never built strong sailors, and soft roads never carved out warriors. The detours, the breakdowns, the disappointments, they were training. Harsh, cruel, merciless training, designed to strip away the illusions and expose the raw truth inside you. The truth you wouldn't have found any other way. You called it bad luck when people left you, when they broke their promises, when they crushed your trust. But think about it. If they hadn't left, you wouldn't have learned how to stand on your own. If they hadn't lied, you wouldn't have learned how to spot the truth. If they hadn't hurt you, you wouldn't have learned how to armor yourself without hardening your heart completely. Their absence wasn't random. It was necessary. They were removed from your path, not to destroy you, but to keep you from being destroyed later by depending on the wrong ones. Every failure you carry wasn't a dead end. It was redirection. You thought doors slammed in your face because you weren't good enough. But those doors weren't meant for you. If they had opened, they would have led you down paths that ended in emptiness, wasted years, hollow victories. You thought the rejection was punishment, but it was protection. Every no you received kept you from saying yes to the wrong destiny. Even your darkest moments, the ones you swore had no meaning, weren't meaningless. They stripped you down, yes, but they also revealed what couldn't be taken from you. They showed you the core of who you are, when everything else is gone. They proved that you could bleed and still breathe, break and still rise. And that lesson, that's not random, that's deliberate. So no, nothing you faced was random. It was all part of a setup too sharp, too intentional, too precise to be chance. Life didn't trip you, it placed you. It placed you right here, right now, in the only position where you could finally see the truth, that everything you thought was chaos was actually the perfect design. Pain positioned you for this moment, though you've spent years cursing it, trying to escape it, pretending it didn't matter. Pain is the great architect, the unseen hand that rearranges your life when you refuse to move on your own. It pushes, it tears, it forces you into corners you never would have chosen. But without it, you wouldn't have shifted. Without it, you'd still be stuck in the same stale rooms, breathing the same stale air, thinking life was about comfort instead of growth. Pain makes sure you don't stay asleep forever. It wakes you up with claws, not kisses. Think about it. Every time you've grown, every time you've sharpened, every time you've realized something powerful about yourself. It wasn't during the easy seasons. It wasn't when you were happy, safe, content. No, it was when you were bleeding, when the weight was unbearable, when the world seemed cruel and indifferent. That's when the shaping happened. Pain stripped away the illusions, the lies, the fake smiles. It made you confront yourself in ways nothing else could. Without pain, you'd still be clinging to illusions that were never meant to carry you. You wanted a path lined with roses, but pain handed you thorns. And those thorns taught you how to walk carefully, how to watch your step, how to respect the journey. They toughened your skin, not to make you heartless, but to make you strong enough to carry a purpose that would crush you if you were still fragile. People hate pain because it burns. But burning isn't always destruction. Sometimes it's purification. It sears away the excess, the weakness, the parts of you that couldn't survive where you're going. Without it, you'd never be able to stand where you are now. Look at the heartbreaks that shattered you. You thought they were punishments, cruel jokes meant to humiliate you. But if you're honest, those heartbreaks forced you to see your worth. They showed you who was pretending, who was lying, who never deserved a seat at your table. Pain exposed what you refused to admit when you were blinded by hope. It didn't break you for nothing. It broke you so you could stop building castles on sand. Look at the failures that made you question everything. They weren't dead ends, they were reroutes. Pain doesn't care about your plans, it cares about your destiny. And sometimes the only way to push you onto the right path is to let you feel the sting of falling flat on your face. Failure humiliated you, yes, but it also humbled you. It carved out the pride that would have poisoned you later. It taught you how to start again, stronger, sharper, more focused. Without those failures, you'd still be clinging to dreams that were never big enough for you. And what about loss? The kind of pain that leaves holes no one else can fill. You thought it was the end of joy, the end of hope, but that loss carved space inside you. Space for depth, for compassion, for understanding you never had before. Pain creates room. It hollows you out, so you can hold more than you ever imagined. You wouldn't be capable of carrying the weight of purpose without first being hollowed by loss. Pain positioned you. It pushed you into strength when you wanted to stay weak. It dragged you toward clarity when you wanted to live blind. It tore away the masks when you wanted to keep pretending. Pain doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about your becoming. And whether you loved it or hated it, it put you right here, right now. Ready in a way you never would have been without it. Delays were part of the design, though you've probably cursed them more than anything else. You wanted things fast, didn't you? Answers right away, breakthroughs on demand, doors to open the moment you knocked. But instead, you got silence. You got waiting rooms that felt endless. You got pauses that looked like punishment, but were actually preparation. You thought the delays meant you were forgotten, overlooked, rejected. But the truth is, the delay was the proof that timing mattered more than your impatience. You see, if you had received what you begged for, when you begged for it, it would have destroyed you. Because you weren't ready. Your hands were too shaky, your heart too fragile, your vision too small. You wanted the reward without the weight, the crown without the scars, the spotlight without the backbone to stand in it. That's the trick of delays. They force you to build the strength you'll need later, whether you want to or not. While you thought nothing was happening, everything was happening. The design was moving pieces into place. Not just you, but everything around you. Think about the moments you screamed inside your head. Why not now? Why not me? You thought you were being punished while others raced ahead. But that delay kept you from rushing into places that weren't meant for you. It protected you from alliances that would have poisoned you. It shielded you from doors that looked golden on the outside, but were rotting on the inside. You didn't see the decay behind those doors, but the delay did. The design knew what you couldn't know, that sometimes the worst thing that could happen is getting what you want too soon. Delays aren't denials. They're red lights on a dangerous road. They're barricades set up because the bridge ahead isn't finished yet. And when you finally get the green light, when the barricades come down, you find out why the pause was necessary. You realize the path needed more work before you could cross it without collapsing. And suddenly, The wait that once felt cruel feels like mercy. But of course, patience doesn't come easy. Delays drive people mad. They whisper lies while you sit in the silence. You've been forgotten. You don't matter. Nothing's coming. And you almost believe it, don't you? You almost give up. You almost walk away. But that's part of the design too. Delays test your hunger. They separate the ones who are casual from the ones who are committed. They strip away the weak who only want convenience, leaving behind the ones who are desperate enough to endure the wait, no matter how long it takes. Every delay shaped you. It taught you endurance when you had none. It taught you self-control when you wanted to collapse into despair. It taught you how to carry silence without letting it crush you. These weren't wasted years. They were building years. Years that taught you how to last. Because what's the point of getting something if you can't keep it? And keeping requires stamina. Stamina you only get when delays force you to develop it. Even the things that felt stolen from you. The job that slipped away. The relationship that dissolved. The opportunity that passed you by. They weren't really losses. They were pauses. You thought the delay meant never. But it meant not yet. And not yet is not the same as no. It's an instruction. An invitation to wait, to sharpen, to grow into the kind of person who can hold what's coming without dropping it. So yes, the delays hurt. They felt like silence, like punishment, like proof that you didn't matter. But look closer. They were design, not chaos. They were positioning, not rejection. Every pause was a part of the plan. Every silence was setting the stage. Every wait was preparing you for a moment bigger than the one you thought you wanted. Closed doors redirected your path, and at first you hated them. You stood there knocking, begging, pushing, praying, hoping that if you just tried hard enough the door would open. But it didn't. It stayed locked, cold, silent. You saw it as rejection, a slap in the face, a reminder that you weren't enough. But what you didn't see was the hallway behind you, the one you would have missed if that door had swung wide open. You were so fixated on what you wanted that you couldn't see what you needed. Closed doors have a cruel way of saving you from yourself. Every time a door slammed shut, you felt the sting. You thought it was a dead end, but it was really a reroute. Closed doors don't stop you. They steer you. They redirect your steps away from paths that look pretty but lead to emptiness. Sometimes the door stayed shut because the room behind it was too small for you. And if you had walked in, you would have shrunk yourself to fit. Sometimes it stayed shut because the people inside weren't built to walk with you. And if they had, they would have slowed you down or betrayed you when you least expected it. Think about it. The opportunities you thought you lost, the relationships that ended, the chances that slipped away. If you had walked through those doors, you'd still be stuck in spaces that couldn't hold the weight of your potential. You would have settled for less because it felt safe, because it was available, because it was there. And settling is the fastest way to die before your time. Closed doors rip comfort out of your hands, so you don't bury yourself in it. Closed doors also expose what you really believe. When everything is open, when everything is easy, it doesn't take faith to keep moving. But when doors slam and silence stretches on, that's when you find out what's in your core. Do you crumble? Or do you keep walking down the hallway, trusting there's something better ahead? Closed doors strip you of illusions and force you to face yourself. They reveal your hunger, your resilience, your willingness to walk away from what doesn't serve you, even when you don't know what's next. And here's the thing about those doors. You don't always find out why they were shut until years later. You look back, and suddenly it makes sense. That job you didn't get, the company collapsed, that relationship that ended, they weren't who they pretended to be. That dream you thought slipped away, it was too small compared to the one that finally caught you. What you once cursed as rejection, you later thank as protection. Closed doors are mercy dressed up as cruelty, but in the moment, it feels like betrayal. You pound on the door until your hands bleed, screaming for it to open. And when it doesn't, you think you're forgotten. But maybe you're not forgotten at all. Maybe you're being guided. Maybe the lock on that door is the only thing keeping you alive, keeping you moving towards something that won't break you. Sometimes the greatest gift you'll ever receive is the door that never opens. Closed doors force you forward. They cut off the option of going back. They corner you until the only choice left is to move ahead. And moving ahead is where the design really takes shape. You weren't meant to stay where you were. You weren't meant to cling to people, places, or things that couldn't hold your destiny. You were meant to be redirected, to be pushed into places you never would have gone if the easy option had been available. That's the cruel beauty of closed doors. They hurt, they sting, they confuse you, but they move you. And movement, even when it feels forced, is always better than stagnation. Timing is the proof of precision. But people hate that truth because they want everything now. They think life should work on their schedule, bend to their deadlines, obey their impatience. But look at it. Has anything real, anything lasting, ever arrived too soon? No, because what shows up too early ends up collapsing under its own weight. Timing is the quiet proof that someone has been arranging the pieces long before you even realized there was a puzzle. Every season you've lived through had a reason, even the ones you despised. You thought you were being delayed, denied, punished. But timing was the invisible hand pulling strings behind the curtain. The job you didn't get, the love that slipped through your fingers, the opportunity that dissolved. All of it was timing. If it had been given to you when you demanded it, you would have ruined it. Not because you're weak, but because you weren't yet sharpened enough to carry it. Timing waits until you're carved deep enough to hold the weight without breaking. Think back to the moments that felt like cruel jokes. Everyone else moving forward, everyone else shining while you sat in the shadows. You thought you were being left behind. But look closer. Maybe you weren't left behind. Maybe you were being positioned. Timing makes you sit still while the stage is being built. You don't get the spotlight until the stage is ready to hold you. Otherwise, you'd fall through the cracks, embarrassed, humiliated, unprepared. Timing doesn't expose you too soon, because too soon is the fastest way to destroy something precious. The pain of waiting, the frustration of delay, the silence that eats at you, those are all signs of precision. Timing isn't sloppy. It doesn't throw blessings around like scraps. It waits for the exact second when everything aligns. The right place, the right people, the right version of you. Because it's not just about you. Timing is weaving together pieces far bigger than your own little world. Someone else's growth might be tied to your arrival. Someone else's readiness might connect with yours. If it all doesn't line up, the whole thing falls apart. That's why it feels slow. It's not just you being prepared, it's everything being arranged. And yet, you still rage against it. You still ask, why not now? Because you want the relief of arrival without the discipline of preparation. But timing isn't interested in your comfort. It's interested in your destiny. And destiny is fragile. It can't be handed to someone reckless, impatient, or blind. Timing makes sure your eyes are sharp, your heart is steady, and your hands are ready before it lets you touch what's meant for you. The proof of precision is always in hindsight. Years later, you look back and realize if things had happened earlier, you would have ruined them. You would have sabotaged what you weren't ready to hold. Timing protected you from yourself. It kept you from grabbing the fruit before it was ripe, from stepping onto a bridge that wasn't finished, from trusting people who weren't who they pretended to be yet. The wait wasn't empty. It was mercy, disguised as silence. But here's the twisted beauty. Timing always feels wrong until it finally makes sense. It always feels late until the exact moment it doesn't. And in that moment, when the door finally opens, when the breakthrough finally arrives, when the silence finally breaks, you realize it was never late. It was exact. It was surgical. It was designed to arrive in the 1 second when it couldn't destroy you, but instead define you. That's precision. And timing is the proof you were never abandoned to randomness. You were always being prepared for alignment. You were meant to see this now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, not someday in the vague future when you thought you'd be ready. Now, that's the part people miss, the precision of the moment. You've walked through storms, crawled through nights that felt endless, carried wounds you didn't think would ever heal, and yet here you are. And this moment right here, it isn't random. It isn't by chance that these words are colliding with your eyes right now. It's because everything that came before, every twist, every delay, every heartbreak, lined up to bring you here at this exact second. Life has a cruel way of making sense only in reverse. You never understand why you had to go through something while you're in it. You curse, you break, you question, you beg for answers that never come. And then later, sometimes years later, you look back and realize that if even one thing had gone differently, this moment wouldn't exist. You wouldn't be who you are. You wouldn't have the eyes to see it. You wouldn't have the ears to hear it. The setup always feels messy, but the reveal always feels precise. Now is heavy. Now is alive. Now is the knife that cuts through all the lies you told yourself to survive. Yesterday, you wouldn't have listened. Tomorrow you might forget. But now you're raw enough, tired enough, desperate enough, open enough to actually let it sink in. That's why this moment was chosen, not because it's convenient, but because it's the only time your heart is in the exact position to receive it. Timing isn't about comfort. It's about impact. Think of all the times you stumbled across something too soon, the advice you brushed off, the wisdom you ignored, the lesson you couldn't understand because you hadn't lived enough pain to interpret it. Those weren't wasted, they were seeds. But seeds don't grow until the soil is ready. And your soil wasn't ready then. It is now. That's why this hits differently. That's why you feel it in your bones instead of just skimming past it. You were meant to. The setup was never about convenience. It was about necessity. The losses that hollowed you out, the delays that tested your patience, the silence that made you question your worth. All of it positioned you to see with eyes that aren't clouded by illusions anymore. You couldn't understand this message until you'd been cut open enough to need it. That's the cruel trick of timing. It waits until you're desperate, until your armor cracks, until you can't hide behind noise anymore. That's when it delivers. And maybe you think you just stumbled here by accident. Scrolling, searching, wandering. But accidents don't feel this heavy, do they? Accidents don't make your chest tighten, your skin prickle, your heart race like someone just pulled your name out of the dark. Accidents don't whisper to your soul like this. That's not coincidence. That's alignment. That's design. That's the moment where the setup finally makes its move and lets you see what was hidden the whole time. So here you are, in the only second you were ever meant to be. Yesterday would have been too early. Tomorrow would be too late. And deep down, you know it. That's why this feels different. Because it was never meant for another time. It was meant for now, and now has finally arrived.